Richard, look at me. Take a deep breath. Walk me through the basement door again. You're saying he was already inside when you got back? Yes. He was wearing camouflage. He was huge, like 6'3". He had a knife, he had a gun. I tried to fight him off, I swear to God I tried to fight him, but he tied me to the chair. And then I heard the garage door open. I heard Connie walk in, and I couldn't save her. I heard the shot. Please, tell me you found him. Please. Inside a sterile, brightly lit interview room in Connecticut, a man sits strapped into a narrative of absolute terror. His wrists bear deep, purple friction burns from zip ties. His clothes are torn. His eyes are swollen shut from crying. This is Richard Debate, a man who sat before investigators claiming to be a victim, unaware of the digital evidence against him. To the detectives sitting across from him, he is a man who has just survived a living nightmare, a brutal, random home invasion that resulted in the cold-blooded execution of his childhood sweetheart and devoted wife, Connie. For the last 2 hours, Richard has been pouring his soul into the microphone. He has detailed every microsecond of the encounter, the texture of the intruder's mask, the cold steel of the pressure applied to his neck, and the agonizing, helpless screams of his wife echoing from the basement floor. It is a performance of raw, unadulterated trauma. To anyone watching this tape, Richard isn't a suspect. He is a broken widower, a father of 2 young boys whose suburban paradise was violently ruptured in a matter of minutes. But watch the lead investigator. He doesn't lean forward to offer comfort. He doesn't offer a glass of water. Instead, he quietly reaches into a black folder, pulls out a series of printed spreadsheets containing dense lines of digital code, and places them flat onto the metallic table. Richard, we've been running the diagnostics on the house. We have the network logs, and we have something else. We have the digital forensic download from Connie's wrist. And Richard, the numbers don't work. In that precise, suffocating millisecond, the frantic hyperventilating stops. The trembling jaw goes entirely rigid. The weeping collapses into a heavy, frozen silence. Because those printed spreadsheets didn't just contain technical data. They proved that the elaborate, terrifying, cinematic home invasion Richard had been constructing for hours was a physical, chronological, and technological impossibility. Before this sudden, chilling pivot inside the police station, the quiet town of Ellington was waking up to a tragedy that sent shockwaves through the community. On the morning of December 23, 2015, a silent panic alarm triggered from inside the Debate residence. When heavily armed tactical officers breached the home, they expected a hostage situation. Instead, they found Richard tied to a folding chair in the master bedroom, semi-conscious, claiming a massive, camouflaged intruder had just fled into the woods after murdering his wife. To the first responders, Richard's terror felt flawless. He gave them the exact timeline. He claimed he left for work early, realized he forgot his laptop, and returned home at 8:55 a.m. to find an intruder already plundering their bedroom. He claimed Connie returned from her morning gym class minutes later, walked straight into an ambush, and was killed instantly at precisely 9:05 a.m. It was a narrative built on extreme emotional realism. It was filled with those tiny, mundane details that liars use to anchor their fabrications. The exact sound of the garage door track, the smell of the intruder's cologne, the frantic, desperate struggle to break free from plastic restraints. And for a long time, the police believed him. Welcome to Time with X. If you are new to the channel, you know we don't just repeat the headlines. We use behavioral psychology and forensic metrics to look for the exact moment the human mask violently fractures. If you are ready to see how a calculated, highly detailed web of deception is completely annihilated by the very technology we wear on our skin, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the trap this husband set was about to snap shut exclusively on himself. As cyber forensic analysts began digging into the digital infrastructure of the home, they realized they weren't dealing with a random act of suburban violence. They discovered that Richard had flooded the room with details to manipulate their empathy, unaware that every single device in the modern world logs reality down to the millisecond. The detectives were holding a massive piece of asymmetric information. They didn't just have his timeline. They had Connie's digital footprint, specifically the data from the Fitbit smartwatch she had been wearing on her left wrist during her morning routine. And what that watch recorded completely inverted the case. It didn't just show she was alive past 9:05 a.m. It proved she was actively moving, walking, and operating inside that house for nearly an hour after Richard claimed she had been executed. But what that watch recorded completely inverted the case. It didn't just show she was alive past 9:05 a.m. It proved she was actively moving, walking, and operating inside that house for nearly an hour after Richard claimed she had been executed. But that was just the first fracture in his timeline. Because as detectives dug deeper into the husband's digital footprints, they discovered a hidden, secondary motive, a dark anomaly buried in his personal life that turned this home invasion story into a desperate, calculated execution. And the most terrifying part? The grand jury was about to uncover a digital trail that would leave the entire community paralyzed with horror. Richard, your story says she died the second she walked through that door. But her watch says she walked over 1,200 feet inside this house while you claim she was dead. You want to tell me how a dead woman is pacing back and forth in the kitchen? I don't know. Maybe the clock on the device is wrong. How did a microscopic digital timestamp expose a husband's darkest secrets? What did investigators find hidden in Richard's digital trash bin that proved premeditation? And what was the final, devastating piece of visual evidence that took this investigation from a tragic home invasion to a cold, calculated execution? The psychological chess match had just reached its turning point, and the truth behind Connie DeBate's final hour was about to be laid bare. To understand how a lie of this magnitude is constructed, we have to look at the exact chronology Richard DeBate offered to the state police on the morning of December 23rd. The holiday season was in full swing. The suburban lawns of Ellington, Connecticut, were frosted with winter morning dew. It was the kind of neighborhood where front doors remained unlocked, where neighbors knew each other's work schedules, and where violence was something that only happened on the evening news. According to Richard, his morning began entirely normally. He woke up early, kissed his wife Connie goodbye, and watched her prepare to go to the local YMCA for a spin class. Richard, a successful IT manager, got into his car and began his daily commute toward his office. It was an ordinary, uninspired routine. But then came the first catalyst. Richard claimed that while driving down Route 83, he realized he had left a vital piece of equipment at home, his work laptop. For an IT professional, a missing laptop is an operational disaster. So, at approximately 8:55 a.m., Richard turned his vehicle around and drove back down his quiet suburban street. He pulled into the driveway, noted that Connie's car was gone, meaning she was safely at the gym, and walked through the front door into what he expected to be an empty house. Instead, he walked into a trap. Or at least, that is what he wanted detectives to believe. Richard stated that the moment he crossed the threshold, he heard a strange sound coming from the master bedroom on the upper level. When he walked up the stairs, he claimed his heart stopped. Standing in his bedroom was a man, but this wasn't an ordinary burglar. Richard described a monolithic figure, 6 feet 3 inches tall, heavily built, wearing dark camouflage clothing and a face mask. A figure that looked like it belonged on a battlefield, not in a Connecticut suburb. Yes, he was wearing camouflage. He was huge, like 6'3". He had a knife, he had a gun. I tried to fight him off, I swear to God I tried to fight him, but he tied me to the chair. And then I heard the garage door open. I heard Connie walk in, and I couldn't save her. I heard the shot. Please, tell me you found him. Please, notice the psychological framing here. Richard doesn't just say he was robbed. He carefully explains away why the intruder had access to a firearm, claiming the massive camouflaged ghost had miraculously located his deeply concealed personal weapon within minutes of entering the house. The story then shifted into an elaborate physical struggle. Richard claimed that the intruder forced him into a chair, using heavy-duty plastic zip ties to bind his hands behind his back. He described the searing pain of the plastic cutting into his flesh, the physical humiliation of being immobilized in his own home. He pleaded with the man, offering him money, electronics, anything, if he would just take it and leave. But then, the narrative engine takes a devastating turn. At exactly 9:05 a.m., the distinct sound of the garage door mechanism vibrated through the floorboards. Connie was home early from her gym class. Richard claimed he began to scream, attempting to alert his wife to the danger upstairs, to tell her to run, to get back into the car, to call for help. But his cries were muffled by the intruder's heavy gloved hand. According to Richard's official statement, Connie walked through the door, called out his name, and heard the commotion upstairs. Instead of running outside, she walked toward the basement stairs, sensing something was wrong. The intruder abandoned Richard in the chair, sprinting down the hallway to intercept her. Richard claimed he strained against the plastic bindings, throwing his weight forward, fracturing the wooden legs of the chair as he desperately tried to break free. From the lower level of the house, a single, sharp echo shattered the morning silence. A gunshot. When Richard finally managed to drag his partially bound body down the stairs, he claimed he found his wife slumped on the basement floor, completely unresponsive. The intruder was still there, attempting to set the house on fire to destroy the evidence. Richard claimed he engaged in a final, cinematic wrestle for survival, burning his own leg against a torch the intruder was holding, before the giant vanished out the basement bulkhead door, disappearing into the dense tree line behind the property. It is a masterpiece of narrative flooding. Richard provided the colors, the smells, the specific dialogue, and the exact physical dynamics of the assault. When the police arrived, they found him crawling on the grass, one leg still zipped to a broken chair leg, gasping for air. The scene looked chaotic, horrific, and entirely authentic. But as any behavioral psychologist will tell you, a liar's greatest vulnerability is their need to control the timeline. They need the clock to match their story perfectly. If you are analytical, you might already notice a massive question mark hanging over this intruder. Why would a random burglar wait around in a house just to tie up a husband, wait for the